Bonsai with Andy de Wet. Now this gentleman is an inspiration. Join us as we interview Andy de Wet at the Aloe Farm to get to know him and his passion for bonsai more. It is exactly 1 week past the autumn equinox, the 28th of March 2026. Two bonsai bros and I had an opportunity to meet the well-known and colourful botanical personality at his world-renowned horticultural destination and plant nursery, the Aloe Farm in Hartbeespoort, in the northwest province of South Africa. Andy is a master plant breeder with over 50 years experience, and the Aloe Farm serves as a growing farm for their unique hybrids. Him and Quinton Bean have developed several award-winning varieties that have enjoyed international success, including and not limited to the Agapanthus Blackjack, winning the 2023 Chelsea Flower Show, and the Aloe Tiger Eye, a popular year-round bloomer. The nursery is open to the public and also hosts events, namely the annual Aloe Festival and the annual Agapanthus Festival. However, it is Andy's interest in bonsai that has encouraged us to cross paths. The Aloe Farm hosted a Brat Day, and that event was captured by the YouTube channel Bonsai with Romano, and I will put a link to that video in the comment section of this video. My name is Leo Moflati of the Pretoria Bonsai Kai, so let's meet Andy and learn about his interest in bonsai and feature some of the bonsai here at the Aloe Farm. Okay, so we're finally here, Andy, and thanks so much for having us. You're welcome. And let's jump straight into it. Tell us about your bonsai journey. How did you get into bonsai? Tell us about where you're at and tell us about your passion in bonsai.
My sister said I'm the ultimate plant nerd. So I studied botany. And then when I started working in a nursery, I saw one or two bonsais. And then I just love all the different types of trees you get in, especially our indigenous trees. So it was just a natural progression. I just started loving. And then I started pruning, and I love pruning as well. So I started shaping and styling and all that. And then one thing led to another. And now here I am. I've got too many trees.
So maybe be so bold as to ask, how long ago do you think you started with bonsai? How long have you been in bonsai particularly?
No, it's not that long. I started in 1983.
Okay. All right. Thanks. And was there something here you wanted to show us, Andy?
Oh, you know what? There's a lot I can show you. There's plenty. But what we do here, and this is somewhere a little spectrum, I just grabbed, it's not the best one, but it's just a nice one. What we do is we grow trees to try, and our starter trees is to cater for anybody who likes bonsais, because many people have seen bonsais in Karate Kid and all that kind of thing, and they fascinated by it. So number one, we use this as a destination for people to come and ooh and ah over this stuff. But also, some people are scared. They want to have a bonsai. They're fascinated by it. So we try and pull them into the game. You know what I mean? So some people say, I'm too scared because I've heard it's a lot of work and I might kill them and all that kind of thing. But then I say to them, get yourself a little speck worm maybe. Because if you forget to water it, it'll wait for you, you see, and things like that. So if we can get people into a hobby like this, it's a very good thing because it's not AI, it's not on a screen, it's real life. And you're getting to know nature and you're getting to enjoy really good stuff.
Andy, I would just love to tell you what the Ella Farm actually means for us, because quite often my family would say, what should we do this weekend, or where should we go? And the Hartbeespoort Dam is just like a stone throw away from us in Pretoria. And often we would say, look, if we go out to Harties and have a lunch, we could actually just go to the Ella Farm. And just for us to be here, we see it as like an outing. And several times that we've been here, there's been so many exciting things happening. I remember that when the aloes were in bloom, there were photographers here taking photographs of the sunbirds.
We've got a birding day in the beginning of June, when all the sunbirds are going bush here, and then people come with their cameras, because we get up to 5 species that come here, because that's a time where there's no food.
Yes.
And then a little bit later, then the aloes become more and more. Then we have our aloe festival. So then everybody comes here again. And then, of course, the Agapanthus, we've got the Agapanthus festival as well. So those are events we do. But generally, it's a destination nursery.
When I restarted bonsai again, when you're starting out, you're trying to build up your collection and you're trying to get bonsai stock, and you're actually going to like every place available that sells bonsai.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that a few of the bonsai that are in my collection now,
Yeah.
that are significant trees in my collection, I actually bought from the Aloe Farm years ago.
Yeah.
Particularly by Celtis. And I will insert the picture now of when I bought it from you, because it was great stock, because it had a thick trunk, it was well priced, and it had been hedged. Like there had been that initial work on it. And when I bought it, now I could take this in the direction that I wanted.
Yeah.
There were so many options available. And I'll insert the picture of how far I've taken it and what it looks like now.
Okay, I want to tell you something now. Look at this. This is a coral tree. So the basic of a bonsai is in the basic initial trunk of the tree. So when you start a bonsai, you've got to start it almost, try and start it correctly, because if this is for a coral tree, for example, you seldom buy in a nursery a coral tree that looks like this. It's normally a pole. So what we do is we give it that good start.
Yes.
So that when you buy a tree, at least from this you can build a magnificent tree.
Yes.
Because it's been started correctly. And I think this is important when you go and buy a bonsai. Look for something that's got the potential to develop into something really good. That's important.
And that was actually the stock that I was actually able to identify and obtain from here.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
Did you want to show us something that you were doing with these bird
Yes. So now what we're doing is, it's a new project basically. So I love Ficus bird davy. The fig family is very popular for bonsais now.
Yes.
And it occurs on all the continents around the world. Figs, the fig species, Ficus. They're very popular for bonsai. The most suitable of all is Ficus bird davy. It's our indigenous one.
That's it.
And because it's got small leaves, and of course this one hasn't got it's got little figs on it that are in the right proportions. And of course it grows nicely. So my project now is to put them on, I'm binding them onto a piece of Mopani wood, because Mopani is the best to use because it's a very hard wood. It won't deteriorate over time, because obviously you want to keep this tree for another 20, 30 years. And then we bind it in there. So what we're expecting is for it to almost melt into that tree over time. As it thickens, it'll melt into the tree. And then can you imagine if you're styling it now? So it still needs a lot of styling in that. It's a good start. Can you imagine what you're going to get from that? It's going to be awesome. And we do them on all sorts of, a little bit of root of a rock and so on. Look, there's the fruit. I'm going to show you the fruit. If you don't believe me, it's a fig. Isn't that cool?
The other thing that I was hoping you would tell us about, Andy, is tell us about this privet over here. You were telling us earlier, and I wonder if you wanted to share.
So, for my sins, I didn't have money to start a nursery initially, so I did landscaping. And in the jobs, we often found these privets. But privets were very popular in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 90s. They were used as hedge bulbs because they're so tough. And then often we'd find them in gardens. So a few of those that came out, I saw at night trunk. So I retained a few and make bonsais. But today it's declared as a weed. That if you look at what you can do with a tree that is not regarded highly by people, but you just see there's potential in it, you can actually turn it into a very nice specimen for your own enjoyment. Because you've got to get to learn all the different types of trees, you know.
Actually, I've got to tell you, when I first used to come and visit here, we always used to try these because they were so available. Like you say, they
Yes.
were coming up like weeds, and we were starting off with bonsai,
Yeah.
and we were getting hold of them, and we never knew the potential of them until I saw the ones here at the Ella Farm, because there's a few massive ones here, actually.
Yes. Yeah. So they are. Look how we've reduced the leaves already on that. It's normally got a big leaf like that. So it's a lovely tree and stuff and hardy and all that. Well, spekboom. That's a good start for bonsais because, as I said before, it's tough. And what kills most bonsais is people don't always sometimes forget to water them. Especially when you go on holiday and you give your bonsai to your brother to look after, and he doesn't water it enough. So a very good start especially for youngsters, is spekboom. But I mean, this is one of my favorites. I've had this for 35 years, and you can see the trunk isn't only thick, it's also very hard because it was slow growth. Slow growth makes it different. It's not as succulent as you normally expect. But if you look at the structure, I mean, this is beautiful. This is still, any bonsai is always a work in progress. Often they're not finished, and it'll take years and years and years to make them nice. But this one's well on the way now. I think in another 2 years, then I'll be really happy with it. We've also got a spekboom that already has a small leaf. So this is my favorite one, my best one, my oldest one. And I've done it in a Pyreneeën African style. But look at that tree. Isn't that amazing? When you do a bonsai, you've got to imagine there are little monkeys jumping around in that tree, or there are birds' nests with birds flying through the tree or perching on it. So this is coming very close to perfection for me. Sitting here under Ficus sur. It used to be called Ficus capensis. It's a common South African tree, one of the fig family, and to prove it, you can see it's got lots of figs, and it's made these figs throughout the summer already. If you look, you can see on the floor all the fruit that have fallen. It's a very useful tree in nature. Even people in dry seasons, when they have no food, actually use this as a food source. But it's a very good food source for all your fruit-eating birds, like your barbets and those kind of things. And it has this fruit in abundance. You can see how much. But look at the structure. Look at the beauty of it. It's also got a very nice foliage. Very big leaves, but they are fairly easy to reduce to a smaller size, and you can make magic with figs, and this is one of those. What we call in South Africa a spekboom, Potylicaria afra. It's also often overseas referred to as a jade tree, or even in South Africa, elephant food, because it grows where the Addo Elephant Park is, and the elephants eat this because it is actually delicious. But so this specimen I put here for a reason. It has what they call a hemiparasite growing on it. It's a mistletoe, but it's one that occurs only in the Eastern Cape where these occur, and they almost exclusively only grow on the spekboom. So I thought I'd bring this to show people the diversity of our indigenous South African plants and what you can find, the story behind the story. Isn't this cool? I got seed from Ernst from Jaarsveld at Babylonstoren. He had one growing and had seed on it, so I planted it on here. Oh. You plant it on there, and it actually attaches. It's sticky. It attaches, and then the root starts growing into the stem, and it starts growing on top of the plant like that. Isn't that cool? Okay, this is where we make our bonsais. This is the area. So when I've always liked bonsais, and I started in 1984, somewhere around there. But when I decided, we started the Aloe Farm, and of course things evolved slowly. When I decided we want to do bonsais, I decided it's no use you do 10 or 20. You've got to do a few hundred or a few thousand, because as soon as they start getting old, you always thought you wanted more. So this is where we make, and we do a lot. So here I've got Ficus Bert Davy. So these have gone through one or two pruning, and I can just pick up any one, and you can see that this could become something nice. And obviously, it's in the eyes of the beholder, and the guy who grows it, he will decide how big and which branches he would select, and how he would shape the tree to become his masterpiece. This is Ficus sycamorus. You find them, I call it the Skukuza fig, because when you go to Skukuza Kruger National Park, where you sit in a restaurant, you sit under one of these and you look down at the river. But it's my favorite, it's my second top favorite of our indigenous trees, because it is beautiful in the wild. But this is my bonsai. Look at that. Isn't this the coolest? Look at the structure of this. And it makes these green stems. Now, this needs a haircut, guys, so excuse that. But look at the beautiful tree. The figs are so awesome to work with, because they're really easy. The branches bend easily, so you can style it. And also they're a bit forgiving when you transplant them. You get people and people. We're not all the same. The same thing applies to the plants in nature. You get speckboom and speckboom. So this is a special clone that we've got at the Aloe Farm here. It makes trunks. It makes thick trunks. Somehow it's just what it is. It also makes very red shoots on the stems are quite red compared, but the trunks, and then the beauty of it is when they get a bit older, they give you this corky. Look at that. Isn't this the coolest thing? This tree is going to be magnificent. I've just given it a first pruning and shaping, and now when it grows out, you can style it into something really nice.
Hi, I'm Quinton Bean from the Aloe Farm C&D Nursery and De Wet Plant Breeders. Just want to tell you a little bit about our bonsai mix. So I've got a very different philosophy about bonsai potting soil to most bonsai enthusiasts. Most people believe it should be predominantly comprised of mineral material, little stones, etc., which I believe is a belief that's been carried over from Japan. And this is not Japan. It doesn't rain every single day for 290 plus days of the year. So I believe you have to have a bonsai potting mix formulated for our country and also specific parts of our country. We use a lot lower percentage of mineral in our mix. There is perlite, there is graded silica sand, but there's a large percentage of composted pine bark screened to 8 millimeters. We also add organic fertilizer called Talborn, which is by far the best in the country. Gives you 3 months of feeding. And there's also some other mineral components like zeolite. This mix has been trialed and tested and evolved and changed over nearly 20 years. I think it's at perfection now. It doesn't break down because composted pine bark is lignitic, so it doesn't continue composting like grass clippings. We take bonsais out of their pots that have been in there for years. The mix retains its structure, does not decompose and break down. It holds a lot of water, which is important in our climate, but it also has a high porosity, which means it has good air spaces in the mix, so your bonsai won't drown because the water is staying in the mix. So it is the perfect balance of water retention, drainage, porosity, and feeding. Okay, so we do sell our bonsai mix. It's a slightly different recipe to the production one. The retail one only has Talborn in it, which is perfectly sufficient. We can't add this little green granules in here, which is called a CRF, controlled release fertilizer. We can't add that because when the bags sit on the shelf for too long, that leaches fertilizer into the media and your EC will go too high and it can burn your plants. But the retail one, except for the Masacote, is the identical recipe to the production one.
Andy, there are so many trees that we could have asked you to show us. And in conclusion, you have chosen this tree to tell us, just to finish off, tell us about this tree.
This Ficus burkei. This is one that was on the farm. It was in my way when we did the development production. It was a 5-meter tree with a pole. So I dug it out, but I loved the roots. So I planted it in a pot, we hollowed it out and we grew it. It was becoming very nice. And then we had a Musa storm here and a pole fell on top of this tree. So it lost a few branches along the way. But I think that is what creates the character of a bonsai sometimes, because it's got all this history. That you when you look at the tree, you remember all this, everything like that. So the same as you guys came here, and I think we'll all remember this day. So it was great to have you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy that you said that. And the three of us, the three bonsai bros, we actually feel quite starstruck and quite lucky that we had a personal tour of the Aloe Farm, and even to go visit backstage where the public isn't allowed to visit. I would just like to say in conclusion, Andy, I found you because of a video post that you did of Galpinia transvalica when I was doing research for my book. And I highly encourage anybody to follow you on social media, because you are, what you see is what you get. Because just as wonderful as you are in your Facebook posts, is the pleasure that we've enjoyed in your company today. And we must thank you so much for having us visit and showing us on your personal tour.
It's only my pleasure.
Fellow bonsai bro, Werner Hoek of the Kimberley Bonsai Akai required 5 bird Davy eyes to go with this creation that was inspired by his holiday in Vietnam. We were able to find 5 suitable bird Davy eyes on our visit today at the Aloe Farm, which I will now courier to Werner in Kimberley. Werner's project inspired an idea that I had, as I am to present at the Katrevier Kai Autumn Festival in April this year. A part of my presentation would be presenting paintings that have been inspired by significant South African rock formations. Werner obliged to use his same method to create a depiction of this painting that captures the Blyde River Canyon in Mpumalanga, South Africa, in return for the bird Davy eyes that are sourced from him at the Aloe Farm today. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to keep an eye out for episode 2 on how to grow baobab bonsai.